Hello and welcome to the Hotline Live with Record Sport. My name is Daniel Caw.
Where are you looking?
Straight into the cameras as directed.
Right.
I'm here joined.
It's amazing. I mean, this guy never comes into the studio and now he's telling me how this place runs. Brilliant.
Listen, before we go any further, I'm obviously joined by Keith Jackson. We're joined by the wonderful Andy Newport at Ibrox. Andy, how's it going?
I'm glad to see you two as professional as ever. It's a slick operation you two down there.
Before we go any further, Andy, I mean, I don't know about you, but Fraser Wilson also of the Record Sport sent me an image last night, Keith, after watching the show.
Oh, really?
And it just kind of it summed up to me. It
wasn't what he was wearing under the desk, was it?
There it is there. So I apologise tonight that it's not Scott on with you in the Hotline, love, but me and Andy will try and do our best to fill in.
Okay.
Quite something that bromance between you and me, Scott. I mean,
it is, isn't it? I'd love to have been a fly.
Something your wives need to know about.
Listen, what is the problem here? Two men enjoyed each other's company during a summer spent at the Euros, and there might have been a romantic sort of a legacy.
We should do a Hotline Live after dark one night.
Who wouldn't love wee Scott in his wee eyes and all that? He's a lovable wee guy.
Perish the thought.
We'll do a Hotline Live after dark one night. But on to football, Andy,
please.
You're obviously at Ibrox tonight ahead of Rangers against Aberdeen. I don't even know where to start with this. You don't know what Rangers is going to turn up, do you, these days?
And you don't know what Aberdeen's going to turn up.
Exactly, aye.
Well, to us here, you probably do. You probably know that they'll get a result, because that's what they do at Ibrox. You know, they spelt 2 points all season. It's away from here that's trouble. Just saying to one of the chaps down the press room, one of the lads that works for the club, big Rangers man, he's sitting going, if only they handed out trophies for home form, maybe Rangers might have something to cheer about this season, but...
I didn't know wee Scotty was there tonight.
He'd certainly be asking for you, so you know about it. So he'd be here with me. Hi, thank you.
This is going great. I agree, Andy, that at home Rangers have been brilliant at home really all season. But
as Philip Clement said the other day, 31 points out of 33.
There's something about tonight's game.
There is, and it's this fixture.
Aye.
And as I said the other night, it seems to be round about the winter period, Aberdeen end up going to Ibrox, and there seems to be a lot on these games almost every time for different reasons, whether it's Michael Beale sitting in the director's box when Giovanni Van Bronckhorst was in choppy waters. I think Steven Gerrard, Drew dropped 2 points, Scott Brown's diving header, 2-2 that night.
Lost the Scottish Cup tie here around about this time as well.
That's
I think,
right.
And usually, Andy, if I'm not mistaken, it's midweek under the lights. There's just something specific to this fixture that usually means there's a lot on the game. Yeah. And I think tonight's no different. Aberdeen having gone this horrendous run, 31 points from 33 in the first 11 games, 4 points from 33 in the next. Desperate to find a win from someplace. You know what Scottish football's like. You know what this fixture's like. There's just always the chance that something unexpected happens. And if it is to do that tonight, I think, what they're saying, Andy, a full house there, just near as damn it tonight, Ibrox.
I think, maybe, passions have cooled a wee bit after the weekend. This is a big game, so there is something of a rivalry, maybe more on the Aberdeen part than the Rangers part, but I think most people will be out. Like, even the conditions are much more favourable for sitting there and watching a game of football than they were at the weekend. I mean, we're just talking about Aberdeen's record here lately. It's been better, but you think about it, I mean, it was only until, I think when Pedro Caixinha was here, it was him who saw that record broken, but Aberdeen hadn't won here for a quarter of a century, 25 years, and ever since then, maybe not every time they come down here, but, regularly enough that you can't rule them out tonight. And also, I think you've got to say that obviously these new signings come in. The Rangers are crying out for reinforcements. Aberdeen, fantastic start to the season. It's been awful the last quarter of the season for them. But at least Jimmy Thelin can say he's been back. They've went and spent $1.5 million and a couple of players, 2 more on loan. So it's just interesting to see what these new faces, if they're going to feature tonight, are they going to have a material change on what has been a pretty desperate run of form for Aberdeen. So there's some intriguing matchups within it.
I think I heard just not that long ago that Alexander Jensen, one of the guys that was brought in just in the last 48 hours, I think he's got his work permit clearance, so he is available if Jimmy Thelin wants to play him tonight. And obviously, I think the defensive issues have been, like Rangers, actually, a bit of an issue. But it shows you something, doesn't it? Rangers have got really bad defensive issues, have done nothing in the first couple of weeks of the transfer market. Aberdeen have just gone in and thrown the kitchen sink at it already. So interesting, I think. I think you'll have an interesting game tonight, Andy. One way or another. And I tell you what, with a capacity Ibrox or near as damn it, if Rangers fail to get to 3 points, I don't think they'll be slow this time, and I don't think it will just be the ultras that are quick to let Philippe Clement know that he's actually veering into completely unacceptable territory.
No, I think your Rangers are operating on a sort of game-by-game basis when it comes to mutiny. I think one result might placate some fans, let's say the weekend. Obviously, the fact they were 3-0 up within 25 minutes sort of took the spite out of what might have been a particularly uncomfortable afternoon for the board for Clement at the weekend. But that can quickly reappear again if things go south. If Aberdeen get themselves ahead, as we've seen a few teams do against Rangers this season, then it does have the potential to be again one of these monumental nights. I mean, listen, Philippe Clement must know that, as I say, game by game, he can't afford to sit comfortably at any stage this season, I don't think, because the way that the results have gone, they're so far adrift. He has run out of credit at the bank. I think he used that expression a few weeks ago, that he used up his credit with the Rangers support, and he's now just one really stinky result away from being in big trouble. He's managed to dodge it in terms of, they've dropped a lot of points away from home, but draws don't quite carry the same furore as losing games, and I think he's now at the point, a bad defeat, especially here, as you say, where they haven't dropped many points. If your home form starts disappearing, then he could be in bother. So listen, that's the incentive for him and his team. They need to keep winning. It's always an incentive, but they are really desperate to go on a run, and they cannot afford to let this gap in Celtic get any bigger. Was it 16 points now, I think? So obviously they can trim it down to, was it
13?
13. Your math's better than mine, Keith. Then so
wasn't a tricky one.
As I say, your maths is better than mine. So listen, the incentive's there, but I think everyone was a bit surprised that. I don't have been on since the weekend. I think everyone was a bit surprised that there wasn't angrier scenes at the weekend, given certainly the online. I think it's a lesson for us all in terms of how you read into online reactions. I mean, certainly I was here at the weekend to speak to Patrick Stewart, and obviously posted his stuff online, and the reaction to it was bordering on just outright fury. She couldn't believe that this manager was getting backed again, But I think what we've known all along about the Rangers support is that they don't tend to speak with one voice, and they do tend to have this sort of people's Judean front nonsense. They all seem to, this is a support that if they really want to have a say and force change at their club, whether it be boardroom or in the dugout, then they have to be more unified. And the fact that there is these splintering views at times, I don't think helps keep the pressure on the way that we'd like. So be interested to see how that pans out. If there is a poor result tonight, maybe focuses thoughts and gets everyone sort of singing off the same hymn sheet. But if they can get a result, then again it buys Philippe Clement a few more days respite. And
on it goes. In terms of what you're expecting team wise, Andy, Tavernier and Balogun, do we think that they might be available tonight?
There certainly suggestions at yesterday's press conference. I wasn't at that yesterday. I think it was Wee Scott. Your pal Wee Scott was there for us yesterday. So I think I read from him.
He did a great job, by the way.
better than anything I ever do.
I didn't want to say that.
So you've thrown me there. So I think there's suggestions that they might be fit. They're back training. I still think it would be you know the way Philippe Clement is, he doesn't tend to throw guys straight in after injury, so it might just be, say, as you were, like the back four has been up and down. 20 minutes against Hibs looked great, 90 minutes against Celtic looked great, rest of 70 minutes against Hibs not so good, Dundee not so good. So it's just which back four turns up in terms of performance levels. I think it'll be interesting to see how Clinton Ciala, if he goes again, how he'll do. That'll be certainly his biggest test since he's been thrown in the lineup. So yeah, some intriguing aspects in terms of Philippe Clement's team selection to come.
In terms, Andy, going forward, I know that in the St Johnstone game he brought back in Danilo as that kind of two forwards with Igaman. I don't know why he went away from that. I think Rangers look really dangerous when they do that. Surely he'll stick with that again tonight at home.
I think Philippe Clement by nature is a pragmatist, so it wouldn't surprise me if he was to put a Hadji and Bayrami back in those sort of dual twin roles with Tierney, and somebody who just has more of an eye in the defensive side than, say, a Danilo. I agree with you. I think when you've got two strikers, they certainly look like they're more lively, more dynamic in the final third. And I think you also get to see, I think there's a bit of a brewing relationship between Danilo and Igamani. So it depends what kind of mood they're in, but it wouldn't surprise me if Philippe Clement goes a wee bit more steady as you go.
I think the sports scientists will be doing their absolute dingers if they find out that he plans to play Danilo for 2 starts in the trot.
That's a good point, actually.
But do you know what? When I was looking at the way they played that last game, you're kind of looking at it and saying, right, Igaman was getting frustrated, so starts drifting. Now that's perfectly understandable. He's not seen any of the ball, so he goes into wide areas and drops deep to try and get on the ball and make things happen. What they were crying out for at that point is for Danilo to take a central role in between the goalposts. You stay there, you occupy the centre halves, and that'll allow Igaman that extra bit of room to go drifting and looking and see what he can create. I think that works well.
Yeah.
And I think Igaman, I think he's done really well as a number 9, but I do see the potential for him to be more of a number 10, and then that way you've got either Hadji or Bayrami in the wider area. But I think if he gives these players the licence to go and play where they want to play and in possession, as long as they know what they've got to do when out of possession, I think that makes Rangers a far more dangerous looking outfit in the final third. And I look at it, I looked at what Jurgen Klopp did at Borussia Dortmund, and he took it to Liverpool, and you look as a kind of observer, you're looking at it, this just looks like organised. It is organised, but it's chaos. And the organisation comes from when you lose the ball, everybody's got an area of the pitch that they need to drop into. Wherever you happen to be at that time, so musical chairs, you just go straight there and you cover that space. And that makes it so difficult to defend against. And I can see elements of that with this Rangers side, that when the handbrake comes off and when these guys are allowed to go and play their own game and do their own thing, as long as they're structured without the ball, I think they're really difficult to defend against when they've got possession. And that's why I think, throwing Danilo into the mix makes them even more dangerous. If you just tell him, you kind of restrict your movement, you be a penalty box guy, and that lets Igaman go and roam a little bit. But as I said, the sports scientists, they won't like the idea of Danilo.
Do you think Danilo won't be involved or won't start?
I think Andy's right. I think it'll be Hadji and Bayrami will come back in the start.
I think, just to say what Keith's discussing there, I think what you saw with Danilo at the weekend is it was obviously he's in the 10 role, Igamani's the centre striker, and I think what you see is Danilo comes towards the ball. If the midfielders have got it, he's the one showing it feet. But see if he doesn't get it, he's then getting on his bike and getting to make the runs beyond the striker and giving you that sort of movement in behind. I think that's what Rangers have been lacking a lot this season. You've got Tierney occasionally will try to go in behind, but Bayrami and Hadji are guys that want on the ball. They don't, and they've not got great pace. They're not going to run away for defenders. No. So they're coming short. And again, if you're a back four that just wants to sit there, that's perfect. Guys playing in front of you, you just sit in your shape, no bother. But I think what you've seen with Danilo is that because he's got that striker's nose when he is playing in the 10, he's going, well, maybe I can make a wee run off the shoulder and try and run the channels.
Just drag them about a little bit, yeah.
And I think you saw that. I think that's when Rangers. I spoke to one of Clement's former assistants earlier on the season. He was like, basically, Clement's whole game plan is based on just opposing runs. He wants a striker coming towards the ball and a winger going behind, or vice versa, and just pulling defences apart. You saw that last season when Rangers were at their best last season, when they looked like they were potentially in a chance of a title race. It was when they had Seema making these darting runs in off the wing and behind, with maybe it was Dessers or Danilo at that point dropping in and looking to link up, and at least it just those opposing runs just dragged defences apart. All of a sudden there was depth in attack, and there was spaces opening up.
That's right. It creates gaps, Andy.
Yeah. That's essentially what Philippe Clement's game plan is all about. What you've had this season has been too many guys that are doing too many of the same things, want to come towards the ball, not enough guys making runs and open up options. So listen, if Danilo starts with Wigamani, that's what you look to do. If it is a Hadji and a Bayrami, then the guys are going to be under pressure to try and do something different, because if they just allow Aberdeen, if Aberdeen can get their noses in front and they just sit in a bank of fours and just squeeze space, then you'll just see Rangers, that's where they struggle. They struggle to break teams down, so what they need is that wee bit of movement, that wee bit of guile, and then that's when you can see Rangers at the most effective. But as we've seen all season, it's hit and miss. Sometimes they're great at it, other times they struggle. So interesting to see.
Well, but Andy, I know you've got some pre-match duties, and I understand that macaroni is on the menu tonight at Ibrox.
That is my pre-match duties. I've got my stand to get. So.
Well, before I let you go and do that, let me throw a couple of comments at you. Blue Nose John says maybe Clement needs his potential successor sitting in the main stand to motivate him. That could be an idea, Keith.
Michael Beale back in town.
Scotland Sun is asking, Aberdeen haven't won the last 11 games. Can they cause an upset tonight, especially with Rangers vulnerable at the moment? And this one from John, he says Rangers are under pressure to get a win tonight. They don't tend to respond well to pressure. Could be a draw on the cards. So essentially, guys, how do you think it will turn out?
I wouldn't be in the least bit. Look, what can you say with any certainty about this Aberdeen side, right? We've talked about this. I've never seen a drop-off like this. I've never seen 2 quarters of a season so ridiculously polar opposite. But common sense and logic dictates at some point they're going to get a win. At some point the win will come. And you just feel that this fixture, maybe Aberdeen see it as a bit of a free shot because they're away from home. There's not any great expectation on them. I just think they're dangerous tonight. From a Rangers perspective, I think that Rangers should be mindful of that. And it's just this Scottish football just has this little quirks and these little kind of anomalies. I think that Aberdeen will cause Rangers a problem tonight. Whether or not Rangers overcome that'll come down largely to how they connect in the final third, because we've seen there's enough evidence now over the last few weeks when these guys are on it and they're linking up and they're playing fast and they're moving, they're a real handful, and that should be enough. But if Rangers aren't quite on their A game in the final third tonight, if their defence is looking a bit ropey, if the Aberdeen new guys come in and they've got a shot of adrenaline, I think it could be a tricky night. It wouldn't surprise me if Rangers drop points tonight. It wouldn't surprise me if Aberdeen won tonight. It also wouldn't surprise me if Rangers won quite comfortable. But what I do think going forward is into this
listen to mistake make here.
Well said, Andy.
But what I'm trying to get at here is I can. This feels very much like end of days stuff for Clement. So if he was to drop anything tonight, he's got a problem, right? Don't worry about Fraser at the weekend. As hit and miss as Rangers have been, they'll have enough in the locker to get through that. That's fine. And then it's all eyes to Old Trafford. And it just, as I've flagged this up a couple of times, it wouldn't surprise me if Rangers got a bad result tonight and then did something ridiculous at Old Trafford.
No, I agree,
and it wins everybody back over again.
Aye.
And it takes a bit of the heat off Philippe Clement for a while.
But give us a score for tonight. How do you think it'll go?
Okay, I'm going to go 2-1 Rangers.
Andy, you having that?
Yeah, I think Rangers have enough. I just think their home record has been solid enough that they can feel pretty comfortable enough about being here tonight. I think I might be a wee bit different in my thinking if Aberdeen weren't in such a bad run, if the new signings weren't pretty much immediately in the door, and if they'd had a few more weeks to settle in and get themselves used to what Jimmy Thelin looking for them. I think, in that sense, the game's probably not come at the best of time. If it'd been another week down the road, you could maybe say that, listen, they're with a shout, but I think Rangers should have enough. If they don't, then Philippe Clement's got some more pretty big questions to answer on that front.
Yeah. For what it's worth, I think Rangers will batter Aberdeen tonight 4-0, 4 or 5-0.
Well, there's one not to put a bet on, guys, as the evidence has proven since the start of this season.
Andy, enjoy your macaroni. I hope it's an absolute cracker for you. Hope it's not too cold as well. And thanks for...
Me too. No, the Gannett's down there. They've probably scoffed a lot yet, so I better bring it down.
Right, cheers, Andy. Thanks for joining us.
Cheers,
Cheers, mate.
Cheers, Andy. Andy Newport there, live from Ibrox. Okay, so Rangers tonight against Aberdeen. But
he's good, but he's no Scott McDermott.
He's no, but no one is. Few people are. Last night, Dundee v Celtic. We should move on to.
What made you laugh there?
Just thinking about that love heart with Scott, like round your wee head.
Please with yourself.
Dennis Mirren, has the panel lambasted Brendan for drawing at Dens last night the way Clement was 3 days ago? I think he means, especially Keith.
Yeah, Dennis is our resident happy clapper, isn't he? No, because Brendan Rodgers is currently sitting 16 points clear at the top of the league, so I think he can stay fairly safe from any lambasting for the time being.
Oh, no, just on the game itself, we've got tons of comments.
By the way, I get in hot water just for saying Celtic were having a mini wobble.
We should get
which, by the way, was correct. But I'm still not sure that they're fully out of that mini wobble.
They've been the same.
They've not been the same since. They've not been at the same height since they were at the start of November. But they're miles and miles and miles and miles and miles and 16 points ahead of Rangers. See, the more I was thinking about it, Michael Gannon in last night's show made the point that's now 7 games in 19 days for Celtic. And they did look tired to me last night. And Dundee, to their credit, Dundee were brilliant, I thought. Dundee were terrific. It was a brilliant performance. I think Dundee probably deserved to win the game. Yeah. So credit to them. Not in the first half. Their second half performance, I thought they were immense, and it was very similar to the way that they just kind of decided to take the handbrake off and go at Rangers. Mm-hmm. They did that in the second half against Celtic. The energy levels were terrific. The aggression was terrific. Yep. They didn't let Celtic breathe in midfield. Aye. It was top class stuff. And do you know something? I've said a few times, but Tony Docherty is really, really proven himself to be a real good appointment, a real clever appointment. Yeah. And obviously, I think, you never have to look too far. Gordon Strachan would be the guy there that, Gordon Strachan, when he was Scotland manager, brought Tony Docherty in his backroom team. He identified what he's got into. So that's why he became, a really good choice, a really good fit for Dundee, and he's proven himself. Yeah. And it's not a freakish, one decent performance or result there. It's over a period of time. No. It's steadily improving the team. The way the team plays has improved. Everything about Dundee right now, feels good. They're a club moving entirely in the right direction. And, what a boost and, shot in the arm that is for them to come up against Rangers and Celtic, such a short space of time with a heavy injury list, and come away with the 2 results and the 2 performances they've just done. That sets them up terrific for the rest of the season. Let me run through a couple of the comments we've had from fans on last night's game. David Bryce says Celtic were outfought and outworked against Dundee, who were the better side. The Celtic defence, particularly Schmeichel and Trusty, were an absolute joke. McGregor continues to play every game, although he's contributed 0 for weeks. As for Adam Ida, he is easily one of the worst strikers I know. He's one of the worst strikers I've seen. A Celtic jersey, a complete waste of money, hopeless. I agree with you about McGregor, but Trusty and Ida. I mean, I lost count of the amount of times last night, and yes, maybe Callum McGregor, he's not ripping them into the top corner from 30 yards the way he was at the start of the season. I lost count of the amount of times last night where I watched him just drop off and screen in front of the Celtic defence, tidy situations up, get himself in there, get control of the ball when Dundee were pressing hard. He'd just get it, take it away, take it out of tight space and set Celtic off. If it happened once, I watched it about 6, 7, 8 times last night. It's really terrific midfield play, and that's exactly what Callum McGregor's there to do. He's not there really to score the 30-yarders. See if he's contributing like that. I thought that he had identified that Trusty was having a hard time, and he thought, I'm going to just get in here and offer a little bit of protection. And that's what he does, and he's brilliant at it. So I couldn't disagree more with that point. His second point, I think Adam Ida, he had a bad night last night.
No goals in 12 games now.
I thought he wasn't the only one. I thought Paulo Bernardo had a bad night last night.
Trusty was the one for me that stood out.
Trusty didn't have a comfortable night. Adam Ida looks to me as if he's just... I think I said this previously with him. I think he's one of these... And I know that all strikers can be a bit streaky. I think he, in particular, is a really streaky striker.
Yeah.
I think that if he gets one goal, he could score 6 in the next 4 games. Mm-hmm. But when he gets into one of these sort of runs where
it's hard to break,
they're drying up, and you look at him, you look at his body language, he doesn't look confident. The things that he's doing when he's in top confidence, when he feels at the top of his game, he plays more instinctively. He does things off the bat. He's quicker. Mm-hmm. Everyone looks laboured. Everyone looks like hard work for Adam.
It's like he's overthinking everything. I
think so.
Aye.
Actually, it's one of those. If one flew in off his backside, then it might suddenly change everything. But he looks like a guy who's carrying the weight of the world.
It kind of underlines. We said this last night a little bit. The importance of Kyogo, because if something come up and Kyogo did leave tomorrow.
I keep saying it. I just don't see any set of circumstances for Celtic think that's a good thing.
I know. A couple more on the game actually, because we've had a lot on it. This one from Kenny Wilson. A disappointing performance from Celtic again. They should have won in the first half. Dundee certainly deserved the point in the end. For the amount of possession, we're not creating chances. The players are maybe thinking the league is over, just going through the motions. It's a bad attitude to have. We need to improve before young boys. I mean, that's a fair point. 2 really big games in the Champions League over the next 2 weeks coming up for Celtic. And
young boys is the one. That's the one. There's a big red marker right around that fixture, and there has been since the start of the section. You're looking at that going, that has to be 3 points.
Yeah.
And even before a ball was kicked in this new group stage, that was the fixture. That was a fixture where you thought, well, there's if you're looking at how the Celtic amass the points necessary, that was one. As the campaign has gone on, young boys have just slipped further and further down the scale. They're coming here with nothing to play for. I fully expect Celtic to take 3 points from that game. Still, regardless of many wobble.
So they are. Look, I think Celtic will win, but I can also see a scenario where they don't and they need to go to Villa, and it's a bad. They need to get something at Villa to go through. I wouldn't advise that. Aye, me neither. But I can just
advise against doing that.
Aye. Absolutely. A couple more comments. William Sloan, anyone being critical of McGregor doesn't know football. And Darren chiming in saying, Big Adam, mate, I think it means Ida, makes Dessers look class. Right, on Celtic transfer news though, there's been a lot of talk today, Keith, surrounding Kieran Tierney.
Where's Mick Gannon? Get him out his leotard and get him on here.
Kieran Tierney.
Mick Gannon, he'll not be signing until the summer.
Kieran Tierney, it's been reported today by Sky and by various outlets that Celtic are in pre-contract talks. There might even be
we knew all this. We didn't need Sky to tell us that. If anybody been watching Hotline Live, they've known it for ages.
And if you haven't been, where have you been?
Exactly.
But it could have ramifications for Alex Valle.
Yeah.
With Como.
Well, that's the interesting development that, Mick and I were arguing it out the other night. I was saying that I believe that Celtic will push the boat out to, yes, they want to do a pre-contract, but I believe that if they can accelerate it, expedite it, and get Kieran Tierney in January, I firmly believe that is the option that Celtic want. I think it's the option that Kieran Tierney wants. It's probably the option that Arsenal want. Mm-hmm. And why wouldn't you do that if all 3 parties believe that's the best kind of way forward? The one thing that Mick had pointed out, and it was fair enough, you're sitting there, you're paying 3 left backs for another 6 months, doesn't make a great deal of sense. So the emergence of the sort of Vai going on loan or transferring his loan from Celtic to Como, all of a sudden you see how that plan works.
Yeah.
Now, is there a Celtic fan anywhere in the country watching this? Please get in touch if there is, by the way, that believes that Celtic would be weaker if Kieran Tierney replaces Vai in the squad for the next 6 months.
No. Surely not.
There can't be.
Well, actually, some of the comments that have come in are the complete opposite. A lot of Celtic fans, as you can probably guess, are pretty excited. Craig here saying Tierney and Dyson in the left flank. That sounds like a cheat code from a PlayStation game. Tom Walk makes a good point. Forget the fact there's a gigantic love affair between Celtic and Tierney. Just being able to sign a player of that calibre is absolutely... forget it's Tierney, forget he's Scottish, forget his link with Celtic. Just as a left back, He's a top class player.
Yeah.
We've said that before, you know, he's best.
Listen, there's not many people would disagree with us, but obviously Mikel Arteta would be
I know, it's a weird one,
notable exception.
It's a weird
I don't
one.
understand it.
Aye.
I've never understood it.
Because the Arsenal fans just go on Twitter when they like
The
him.
Arsenal fans, as soon as Kieran Tierney rocked up at the Emirates, they identified him as captain material. They loved him.
His
They
attitude,
fell in
aye.
love with him.
Aye.
And for obvious reasons. He's you know, I try to not use the sort of cliched but I can't help but say there's a kind of Rolls Royce element to Kieran Tierney. When he's fit, when he's on top of his game, he's that calibre. And look, I know that we always add the caveat that his injuries, problems, and can you guarantee that his body's not going to break down? Are you going to get 6 months out of him before the next injury? That is a problem. But, you know, he's due a change of luck. There have been players whose career story is littered with injuries throughout, you know, the kind of 20s and whatever. And then, by the way, they get to the later stages of their career and they add 3 or 4 years on because they've had so much time sitting in treatment tables where they can bolt it on at the end.
Craig Gordon, I know he's a goalie, but he had a couple of years out.
Exactly.
Aye.
Listen, Mark Hateley was a good example
Aye.
where he came to Rangers and he hadn't kicked a ball for, the best part of a year, 2 years, 18 months, whatever it was. And he always credited that with the fact that as he got older, he got better, that he used that kind of period that he had out the game and think, well, I'll get that back at the other. Now, if Kieran Tierney can get it back at the other side, what a player Celtic are saying.
Still only 27.
Exactly right.
Aye.
I mean,
I stand by it.
It's a no-brainer for me.
Aye.
Just that's why Mick, because he has no brain, didn't see that for himself.
I stand by it. When he's fully fit and flying, he's world class. He's up there with any left back.
Well, world class is a big.
I know
big
it's
one,
a big
right?
statement, but
But I've used Rolls Royce, so I'm not going to, pick a fight with you over it. Certainly, what you would say is, I felt when Kieran Tierney was at the top of his game at Arsenal, you were looking at him and Andy Robertson as the best two left backs in the English Premier League.
yeah.
So, does that constitute world class? Well, it's the biggest league in the world. It's the most expensive league in the world. Players are paid more to play in that league than in any other league in the world. So it probably does.
Yeah. Just to address this, Johnny says something similar to Mick. He says, it's unlikely we'll see KT this month. He's due to make a substantial wage cut to join us and he make $3 million Arsenal between now and the end of the season. But
it's a loan deal.
Aye, exactly. It doesn't benefit Arsenal or Tierney or Celtic for him just to be sitting there.
It benefits nobody.
Aye.
And you know what? I think even if Celtic and Arsenal have to come to an agreement, and even if Kieran Tierney has to agree that he can't quite get his full 100% Arsenal wage, but he can get somewhere in the region of a significant figure, I think that this is just something that the player wants to happen.
Yeah.
For a variety of reasons, none more so than I think he just feels he wants to come home, literally and figuratively.
Spiritually,
It's time. He feels this is his time. And as we've said, this is a guy that carries his boots to games in a Tesco bag. I don't think he's worried about, earning enough to buy himself some Louis Vuitton luggage between now and the end of the season.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's got it already.
D-Man's pointing out that if Celtic paid that $3 million, it's still a bargain to get him between now and the end of the season, especially if they make the Champions League playoffs.
Exactly. And if you've got him fit and you're going into these Champions League games, and it's absolutely, by the way, and the last thing that I would do would be in any way insult Greg Taylor, because I've spoken many times. I think he's been a terrific signing for Celtic, and I think that Celtic, they really should be pushing the boat out to make sure that they've got the two of them. But let's be honest about it. If you were going into a real big Champions League occasion and you had a choice, 99.9% of guys are going to say that Kieran Tierney is...
I know harm to Taylor, it's just Tierney's...
Well, but it's no harm in the first place. When Kieran Tierney left, Greg Taylor came in pretty much as the replacement, and I think he's done better than anybody expected.
He's done brilliantly, aye.
But he'll never quite... Which is why, by the way, when they go in the Scotland squad, Greg Taylor's so unlucky that he right now is the third choice left back.
It's a bit like how me and Andy and Mick were really good, but we'll never be Scott McDermott, when we're on with you.
Yeah, and Scott has to work under this problem as well, that he's quite good as well, but he's never going to replace me on it.
We all have our crosses to bear.
Nightmare.
Douglas in the comment section,
Rolls Royce.
he points this out. Tierney in this month with Vi potentially going to Como puts us in a position with Greg Taylor. Does he sign a new deal knowing he isn't first choice? We need 2 left backs. If you're in Greg Taylor's shoes, what do?
Well, I think that maybe Vi going away on loan would help clear up the situation somewhat for Greg Taylor.
But long term, his deal's up at the end of the season.
Yeah, I know, but was he looking at Vi going, well, what's the deal here? Have you got to try and sign him up in a permanent? Am I going to?
Aye.
So Greg Taylor would then be looking at it, kind of knowing, okay, I'm likely to be playing second fiddle to Kieran Tierney. I don't think anybody should take that in the wrong way. But you've also got to factor in, well, do you know what? Is Kieran Tierney going to be able to play 3 games a week? Probably not.
No.
They're going to have to share the position. If I was Greg Taylor, I'd be perfectly happy with that. If I felt that Celtic, as long as Celtic weren't kind of trying to mess around with the numbers. Greg Taylor has been a good Celtic. They have various grades of contracts in at Celtic, and you have to earn your way up through the contractual grading system. I don't know quite what Greg Taylor is, but he's not in one of the Premier rates. Mm-hmm. Is he saying that he should be? I don't think that Greg Taylor will be pushing for that. I don't think he thinks he belongs in the top echelon. But I think there'll be a fair rate for him. And if he feels that Celtic aren't willing to give him that, then I can understand why he's looking about his options. Because there probably will be teams out there that can financially give him what he is demanding. Mm-hmm. I don't think, and I'm struggling with it, because I really don't think that this one should be a difficult one for Greg Taylor or for Celtic. So I find it strange that there's this impasse, and there has been a sort of long-running one. Maybe Kieran Tierney coming back in, maybe Alec Vi leaving, moving out, maybe it clears the picture a little
Moves
bit.
Moves it on a bit, yeah.
And it allows Celtic to say, right, well, okay, we can now increase that to whatever it is, and that might be, closer to what Greg Taylor and his advisor are looking for. Mm-hmm. But it's like, we've spoken about this so many times, and this is a perfect example of it. Some players, they realise the hard way that when they leave, whether it's Celtic or Rangers, and I know it's the Scottish League, and other people are looking for a different environment, something more challenging, a better quality week in, week out, and so they want to go and experience. And you can't blame anybody for that either.
Right.
But I've spoken to so many of these guys that think, do you know what? I was probably a bit hasty.
Aye.
I didn't realise just how good I had it.
Aye.
And they go and search for something else.
Well, on that, today, and look, this is...
Listen, there's Kieran Tierney.
Aye.
He's gone away.
He's sampled it and he's
but there's something inside him that can't wait to get back.
Well, today, and I know social media is not the be-all and end-all, but Greg Taylor was trending in Hull on Twitter, and it was a lot of Hull City fans seeming to think, oh, we're going to get Greg Taylor now. Now, no harm to Hull. Championship's a really competitive league, it's great and all, but Hull City and Celtic?
Yeah.
Come on.
Have you ever been in Hull?
I have actually. I went to Hull and back.
Yeah.
Sorry. A couple of people, plenty of people actually, in the comment section pointing out Taylor will still play games. D-Man saying he'll play 30 games a year.
Yes, I'm saying they'll share the possession.
As what William Sloan says, as someone else mentioned, Keith, Rodgers could easily play KT at left centre-back and leave Taylor where he is. So there's definitely options there for Celtic.
100%. And let's not underestimate Greg Taylor as well. I feel there's a danger that we can be a bit dismissive. I've said he's been one of the keys to Brendan Rodgers tweaking the tactical blueprint for what Celtic are doing in the Champions League after the Dortmund game and all that. You watch it, it's always Greg Taylor that starts in front of Vi. The reason for that is he has learned how to play as an inverted fullback. It comes naturally to him because he's a converted central midfield player, and he slots in there, and he gives Celtic that extra layer of protection, sitting next to Callum McGregor. Everything that wasn't there in the Dortmund game, Greg Taylor has provided just by that simply moving inside 10 yards. They kind of almost go to a 3 at the back, and if they kind of go to a 3 at the back, then Kieran Tierney has made that position his own in the Scotland setup. but Greg Taylor's ability to come inside and play that really clever role, identifying where the problem is, moving towards it, shutting it down, helping McGregor. He's been key to Celtic's European progression. And that's one reason if I was Brendan Rodgers, I wouldn't be in any rush to let him leave the building.
Aye, I completely agree. I think that brings us to the end of tonight's Hotline Live, brought to you by Record Sport. Thank you so much for getting involved. The comments, as ever, have been absolutely brilliant. We appreciate it. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again at 6 p.m. We'll review the Rangers versus Aberdeen predictions, see how we all got on.
Yes.
And we'll be back then.
I guarantee it'll not be 4-0 Rangers.
Listen, I was going to say, put your money where your mouth is, but I'll just leave it. Thanks very much for watching. Cheers.